Hey guys, we're starting our new unit today. That's the first unit in fourth quarter. Notice it says bonus unit because it's a bonus unit. This was a unit that I was designing just to go right before spring break. So that's how long it is. It's until spring break. If you notice, there's lots of sections and parts to it. So I want you to take a circle and take its radius, and you're going to figure out how many radiuses fit around the circle. So I want the exact number and not rounded. Now, I want you to take a minute and see if you can figure it out. If you're getting stuck, try using that the circumference equals 2 pi r. So see if you can figure out how many radiuses fit around the circumference using this idea. If you're really stuck, notice this. There are exactly 2 pi radiuses in the circumference. So there's just 2 pi of them. So if we actually look at a circle, let me get my little pretty shape and draw a circle, and it's going to be terrible. It's going to be fine. You can actually do this with like a can or something and trace it onto your paper. You can actually then find the radius, so find the diameter with like a string and then fold it in half. Once you find the radius, you would then take this length right here, and put it around the circle. If you do this to every circle in ever existence, you will find that this works every single time. Had you guys been in class, I would have had you do this activity where we actually find that the length of the radius, if you look right here, the length of the radius fits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a little bit. Well, pi is a little over 3, so 2 times 3 would be 6, and then since it's a little over, it would be and a little bit. So this is an interesting pattern. So a radian is just a unit of angle. So like 1 radian would be this. At the center of a circle with an arc length equal to the radius. Okay. Now, the reason that I think this is significant, and I'm going to write it down, is because this unit relates directly to the circle. It's not some arbitrary number. 360 was specifically chosen because it has a lot of numbers that equally go into it. There are numbers that still don't go into 360, but there are quite a few numbers that do. And that's why they chose 360. But it was a man-made choosing rather than a radian, which is directly related to the circle itself. Which means it makes sense to me logically why we chose pi, or 2 pi, as the amount of radians that goes around a circle, because there are 2 pi radiuses that fit around the circle. All right. Now, if we're converting between degrees and radians, you're going to make a ratio of x degrees to y radians. If you want, you can try this on your own. Go ahead and pause the video. If not, I'm going to walk you through it. So there are x degrees out of 360 degrees in a total circle. So we can say that's equal to y radians over a total of 2 pi radians. So if I'm going between either one of these, I'm either going to multiply by 360 or multiply by 2 pi. That's going to be my goal here. Okay, so I'm going to take either x over 360 and multiply by 2 pi, or I'm going to take y over 2 pi and multiply that by 360. Does that make sense? So right here, I'm going to take 30 degrees, and that's going to be 30 over 360 times 2 pi. And that will give me my y. So, and notice that radians usually have pi in them. That's helpful. All right, so now I'm going to take my handy dandy calculator. If it pops up, we'll see. It's being struggling. Oh, there we go. It's popping up. By the way, if you have a computer, I can go ahead and give you this. If you're just using a Chromebook, you're not going to be able to use the software just yet. They are working on getting something up on a Chromebook platform that you guys would be able to use. Currently not available. So I'm still waiting to hear back news on that. Okay. Now, so I'm going to type 330 divided by 360 times 2. Notice I don't put the pi in because pi is part of radians. Okay, now I hit enter. Ooh, that's a gross fraction, so I press math, enter, enter, and I get 1/6. So this is going to be pi 6. Because remember, I didn't type in the pi, so then I have to put the pi in. All right, so now if I want to find and go the other way, I'm going to take pi fourths divided by 2 pi, which if you look, gets rid of the pi part. And then we're going to multiply by 360. So I'm going to take, I'm actually going to show you what that looks like. So I would take the number pi fourths divide by 2 pi. Notice how many, oh, I wanted that to be pi. Parentheses I'm using, that's important. And then I want to multiply that by 360. Okay, and I get 45. So this is actually 45 degrees. Okay, I want you to go ahead and try the rest of this. I'm just going to be posting what the answers are in just a second. I'm just going to randomly, they're going to. Okay, if you've noticed here, I've gotten quite a bit done. Now, I want to talk to you about something that I haven't addressed yet, and I realized that when I finished this first part. If you look at this, this is pi 6. This is the other reason why I really, really like this. It sections out my circle. So if we look at this, here's my circle. We're just going to do the top half because we're only going to be doing pi 6 of it. So if the entire circle is 2 pi, that means half the circle has to be pi radians, right? So if this is my axis, there's half my circle, that would be pi radians. So that would mean that if I did 30 degrees, which is about here, well, this is 180. So if I did 30 out of 180, I get 1/6. So this is 30 degrees, but it's 1/6 of pi. Okay, if you look down here at 45 degrees, it's pi fourths. If you think about this, right, this is 180 degrees, or pi. Then 45 degrees would put us right here. This is 45 degrees. Well, if you look at this, this is going to be 1/4 of pi. Hence, pi fourths. If you look down here at 90, if we found this in radians, if we look at this, here's pi. Well, this is half of that distance, so this would be pi halves. This is 90 degrees, right? So hopefully this is starting to make sense to you. So 3 pi fourths, if I was looking at this, I would want 3/4. So here's pi, 3/4, here's 1/4, here's 2/4, here's 3/4 of pi. So this would be 135 degrees from there. It would be 3 45s, in case you're wondering. Okay, that's how radians work. That's one of the reasons why I think it's so important to understand. Like, see, here's 180. If you go 180 degrees, the whole circle is 2 pi. So if we only go half the way, this would be half of 2 pi, which is just pi. Half the circle is pi. So if I did 7 pi 6, so I take my circle, obviously perfect, and I split it into 6. Well, my top half of my circle and split it into 6, because remember, we're talking about pi, and this is where pi is. And I want to do 7 pi 6, I should be 1/6 over pi, which would be right here, which is 210 degrees from the origin. Okay, does this make sense? If it doesn't, please leave a comment below, and hopefully someone will address it, and they can maybe address it in a different way than I have, or maybe I'll get to it later. You never know. Notice this is 5 pi 4, so this would be 1/4 more than pi. So here we'd be at pi, and then we'd go 1/4 more, which is 225 degrees from the origin. Okay, that's why I love these so much. Okay, I'm going to do these last 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll do these last 5 with you. And then you guys are in charge of answering these ones. Okay, notice these are all questions that are personal to you, not so much to me. These are for you, for later. You can download these notes and write on them yourself. It's exciting. So if I'm doing 4 pi thirds, I'm actually going to think about my unit circle here. And I could do just the math. By the way, I hate doing just the math. I'd rather logic my way through it. So if I'm looking at, so here's pi, and here's 1/3 of pi, here's 2/3 of pi, 3/3 would be pi. And then we want to go to 4/3. So then that would be, oh, sorry, I drew that wrong. About there. Now 1/3 of 180 degrees would be 60. So that would be 60. This would be 120, 180, and then add 30, 60 more, and this would be 240. So this should be 240 degrees. Isn't that kind of cool? I think it's cool, but I'm also a math teacher. I hope you guys heard that. I think it's cool. All right. So let's take a look at this 300 degrees. So I like logicking my way through it. Doesn't super matter to me if you do too. But anyway, from degrees to radians, I generally just do the math. So this would be 300 over 360. If you notice, you can easily simplify that fraction times 2 pi. So I've got 30 over 360 times 2. So 30 over 360 times 2. Nope, 30 over 36. 30 over 36 times 2. That gives me that gross fraction, so I do math, enter, enter, and I get 5/3. So this would be 5 pi thirds. Now I have a harder time imagining where 300 over 360 would be, but I have an easier time imagining 5 pi thirds. So if I look at this, 5 pi thirds, well, here's 3/3. So this is 4/3. Here's 5/3. Right? Because each of these is 1/3 of pi, and that's where pi is. So 7 pi fourths, again, I like to draw my circle. If you can think of this, so 8/4 is what would get me all the way around to 2 pi, right? Because 8 divided by 4 is 2. So this is only 1/4 short of 7 pi fourths. So I'm going to take 360 and minus 45, and that should be my angle. Because this would be 7 pi fourths. Because there would be 1/4 of pi. There's 2/4 of pi. 3/4 of pi. Here's pi. Then 5/4 of pi. 6/4 of pi. And 7/4 of pi. Okay? So then I'm just taking this angle. So that's going to be 360 minus 45. And I get 315 degrees. So if I'm looking at 330 degrees, that is 30 degrees short of 60, 360. So then if I'm looking at my circle here, If I'm 30 degrees short of 360, that would put me about there. Well, if you remember, 30 degrees is 1/6. So I need to split pi up into 6 pieces. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6, 6, 7, 6, 8, 6, 9, 6, 10, 6. So this would be 11, 6, pi. So this would be 11 pi 6. And then 2 pi, as we hopefully all know, should be 360 degrees. All right. What was easy about this? What did you find more challenging? What did you need to remember? So those are all questions that you hopefully can ask yourself. I love you guys so much. Please post a comment, a question, responding to somebody's question below, and hopefully you guys can get this all settled. I'll be jumping on and answering your questions probably around like 4, because that's my life. All right.